outside of Denver.
Hi, everyone. You guys are live. Have a good meeting.
Thank you.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Chair Barry Bialik, and I would like to welcome you to the March 4th, 2021 Affordable Housing Advisory Committee meeting. Let's see, our Affordable Housing Committee has, sorry, it's early for me. I'm at a different city right now. We have, I think, 9 members, and we're adding 2 more. Is that correct? I'm sorry. All committee members and staff are participating virtually. We appreciate your patience as we work through committee meetings a little bit differently. We're streaming live on our virtual engagement hub, which is accessible through the virtual engagement hub link on the front page of the city website, and also linked on the committee page. We also have an option for the public to listen live by phone. For those of you out there with us today, welcome. I will now go through and introduce the committee members who are participating virtually. Committee members, please make sure to mute your microphone if you're not speaking. When you have a question or would like to speak, unmute your microphone. Please remember to mute your phone after you are done speaking. Committee members, as I call your name, please say a quick hello. Let's see. I'm Barry Bialik. I'm here, obviously. Dewana.
Here.
Thank you. Margie.
Good morning.
Andy.
Good morning, everyone.
Paul.
I'm Paul. Good morning.
Scott.
Hi, Scott Adams, urban planner with Land of Sky Regional Council.
Babs.
Good morning.
Brian.
Brian Mithman, good morning.
Okay. I think that's it. Just making sure no one else popped in since I did my little roll call right down. I think that's everybody we've got here. We also have joining us Councilwoman Mosley and Councilwoman Turner, and also community development staff, Paul and his fantastic crew. Thank you. Let's see, I'm going to bring up actually Parker Smith, our other member, just joined in. Parker, if you could just say a quick hello, just so we can get you in roll call.
I'm here.
Okay, thanks, Parker. Okay, to help our audience follow along, I'll go through each item of the agenda aloud and do a voice roll call for each vote. Additionally, I ask that committee members raise their hand to speak, and I'll call upon them. Sometimes they'll say it is hard to notice that. So, Paul, if someone, Margie, maybe if you could watch, can you see if you can watch and then kind of prod me to make, sometimes when I'm in a list, it's really hard to follow that. So if people have questions, make sure to prod me on it so I can make sure we get to them. Okay, so the first item on our agenda is, let's see, approving our minutes. Has everyone had a chance to read through the minutes that were attached? Any have a motion to accept?
I make that motion to accept.
Okay.
I second.
Okay. Any discussions? All in favor, aye. We can just raise our hand for this. Thank you. So I'm having to scroll through screens a little bit here. Okay. Thanks for all that. So what we're going to do this meeting, rather than have we're going to kind of tighten our agenda down. We need to really spend the bulk of the meeting talking about our down payment assistance program. So, I'll share a brief history of it, and then I'll let turn it over to Paul, and then we also have Mike Vance from Mountain Housing, who's going to give a little background on it. But this was a program. It was designed, I think it's more than 2 years ago now. So it's kind of sat on the shelf for a while. We had part of the affordable housing bond money was allocated towards a down payment assistance program. It was $1 million. So we, it came through this committee. It was approved by City Council. Then it went, kind of sat there for a while. Went out to RFP. We had 2 responses: Mountain Housing and another party. Mountain Housing proposal was deemed the one to move forward with. So now there's, Mountain Housing is asking for some changes and to look at the policy that's not exactly how it was approved. So that's what we're going to kind of spend our time to discuss to see if we can come to a consensus and agree to move it along, or if we think we need to take a deeper dive into this. It is part of the bond money, so there's a tick-tock timeline on it. And this was something, that's fortunately approved 2 years ago, and we're trying to now decide if we can make this happen. Paul, you want to kind of take over, and then we can kind of lean into Mike?
Yes, absolutely. And good morning, everybody. Paul D'Angelo here with the Community Development Division. So everyone has the agenda in front of them, and also the staff report. There was a wrong date in there. I think that Scott or somebody had sent, so I was able to fix that. But Barry, your summary is good. That staff memo just tries to talk a little bit about how we got here today. A brief discussion of the recommended changes that I think Mike will talk about in just a few minutes, as well as some additional clarity. I do think that taking a look at, to possibly help guide the conversation, at the bottom of that staff memo, it talks about next steps, discussion points, and a couple things to think about: whether AHAC agrees with MHO as the city's third-party partner, and the updates to the policy. How should the AMI be focused over the next 18 months? How can we all work together to market down payment assistance to everybody in the community interested in home ownership, including our Black and Brown community members? This gets discussed often internally in the building about doing that better job. And then I don't know if it came up on the updated document, but what happens if AHAC cannot come to consensus on this? And briefly, just to answer that question, I believe in general, we would look for guidance from city management. We would probably look at possibly going out for another RFP on this, or is there a better use of this $1 million outside of DPA? That's obviously a bigger discussion. But those would be the next steps. So knowing a couple of those perhaps next steps and guidance questions that could help. We do have Mike Vance here this morning from Mountain Housing Opportunity, who submitted his proposal for down payment assistance. I think Mike wants to talk about his proposal, their work, and I will have a brief presentation that Mike put together when he's ready for it. So Barry, if that's good, I will turn this over to Mike.
Okay, sure. So I see Dewana, before I quickly, I see Dewana raised a hand. Dewana, yes.
I just have a small question for Paul. What's the timeline on when these funds have to be used?
So we would really have until October of 2023. So basically about 2.5 years, I believe. Yes. And I can put spent, Dewana, in air quotes, because there is a little wiggle room you get, like you could possibly allocate it and things like that. But I think overall, the city is trying to spend all the dollars down by October of 2023.
Okay, thanks. Scott?
And conversely, what happens to the funds if they're not spent? Where do they go or revert to?
I can check with finance on that, Scott. I'm not really sure what would happen, but I would feel confident saying that we're certainly not wanting that to happen at all, and we've been spending the dollars, but yes.
Certainly. Okay, thank you.
Yeah, and there has been some discussion. I don't know if they can be allocated or not, because the bond was very specific how the funds were broken down. I don't know if they can be allocated or what the process is. Andy?
Okay.
Before we go to Mike, and I didn't see this in the staff report, but can we confirm that this is intended to be one-time funds, not a continuing allocation? So one-time funds out of the bond, and an estimate of how many, based on the model that we've looked at in the policy, how many households this would serve?
So currently, this bond of the $25 million that went into the affordable housing bond, Andy, is, as far as I know, a one-time. shot there. I do believe that if this is successful and we could show that, I'm sure, don't want to speak for city management, I think they would consider an additional bond in the future. But for right now, this is the only one that we have and that I know of on the books at the moment. And it would be just one and done at the moment.
But it's not gonna, it's not planned to be an ongoing allocation outside of bond funding.
Not at this point, no.
Okay, thank you. And can you answer my second question about, given the per unit amounts, how many households we're looking at?
That's been talked about. If it went to say where we needed, depending on what you all talk about today, and if it's not a repayment fund, so it would probably help anywhere. I think we figured between 12 to 20 families, depending on the amount of down payment assistance. I think in general, there's some consensus that it could take up to $80,000 in down payment assistance to get folks below 60% AMI into Asheville households.
And it is a program that can be layered with others. I think it's designed to be layered with others, so it doesn't have to be the only source of down payment assistance.
And with those things, absolutely, we could possibly get maybe up to, more homeowners, up to 25 or so, depending on all of that layering, et cetera, and what the family brings to the table as well.
Yeah. And then the biggest difference, I'll just give a background before we, pass over to Mike, I guess, quick. The biggest difference that's come up from what was approved and then the mountain housing proposal is that it was originally drafted as a forgivable amount, and it had had amounts that would be set for 80% AMI and 60% AMI and below. And so one of the biggest difference is whether they proposed that it be a revolving fund, meaning it's not a forgivable loan, and it would be a shared appreciation model, which is what Mike is going to explain and share about. So that's really the biggest discussion point we have on this. I think that to decide if that difference, if we can live with that difference, and and I think we're going to look at ways of how it's similar to other programs. It's funny, it's similar, like Mike brought the point up, but when we looked at it, it's actually very similar to the community land trust model, that the land trust, there's not ownership of the land, and there's obviously not an appreciation that comes with that. So there's similarities, and that's one of the things we're going to look at with this, or Mike's going to share. With that, any other questions or any more background before we hear from Mike? Dewana?
Sorry, no. I'm ready to listen for a second. My
Okay.
bad.
Andy, you still have your hand up? Just checking on that.
Put your hand down, Andy. Okay. All right, great. Mike, you ready?
Yes. Excuse me. Yes. Can you hear me?
Welcome. Yep.
Thanks for having me. I'm Mike Vance with Mountain Housing Opportunities. Appreciate the opportunity to talk a little bit about down payment assistance, what we've been doing, our model, and what we think we can offer as an administrator of this fund for the city. I hope everybody had a chance to look a little bit at the shared equity, shared appreciation document.
Yeah, pause one second. I see Christina's got her hand up.
We need to pause for just a moment. We are having some additional connection issues. So if we could just pause the meeting for a second, we can work on getting that fixed.
Okay.
Thanks, Christina. Let us know if we can help at all.
Yeah, no problem. Thank you, Paul.
Hopefully we don't have the long awkward pause that we did. We did a few meetings back. Scott, if you want to do any miming, you're welcome to.
I have a thought on something to fill up this pause, but it looks like Oh, Scott's playing games there. But I have a quick thing that's not on the agenda, but I think would be appropriate. I believe that my boss, Sam Powers, is on the line, and this is his last AHAC meeting. He is retiring and leaving us. I don't know how I feel about that quite yet. Maybe Sam even feels, I'm sure Sam's got some great feelings about this, but if you all didn't know, yesterday Sam was honored by the Asheville-Buncombe Regional Sports Commission in a kickoff press event for the 2021 Southern Conference Basketball Tournament at HCCA. The Asheville-Buncombe Regional Sports Commission dedicated and renamed the entrance foyer to the Sam Powers Foyer. And that's the new name, the Sam Powers Foyer, for all sporting events moving forward. So I think that's pretty cool for Sam. It's his last AHAC meeting, and speaking for myself and our community development team, we are super grateful for him and the guidance he's provided us. I'm sure for putting up with me every once in a while and my big mouth in the department, but I'm grateful for that, his guidance, and we are going to miss him immensely. And Sam, we will give you the floor if you want to say anything. We're grateful.
No, I'm glad you did this during the pause. So thank you. We are not supposed to be. Yeah, we're not supposed to be conducting business, so we will assume this is not business and not part of the minutes. So, but thank you, and it's been great. And I'll still be in the community and still be working with hopefully some projects and initiatives. And so happy about that part of it. But thank you, Paul.
We're going to miss you, Sam.
Thank you, Margie. I'm not going to be too far away.
We'll keep him on speed dial. I'm sure we're going to have some questions for you every once in a while, Sam, but he's a great navigator, and we're grateful for all of his leadership.
Thank you. What did I kind of miss? Which Christina said? Just you said the YouTube channel was down?
No, the YouTube channel is not down. The connection from our Google Meet to get to YouTube, there's some connection issue that our IT and Kate team are working on right now.
Okay.
So just bear with us. And sorry for the inconvenience. And sorry for the inconvenience. We're working now, actually. So inconvenience. We're working now, actually.
Well, that was really Christina, you're great. And a quick shout out to Christina too. She's pulling double duty this morning on our end, where she's taking meeting minutes and running the I think y'all realize we now run the show for these events that departments do, because Cape's got so much going on. Everybody does, but Christina's pulling double duty. So thanks, Christina. Take the time you need, and please let us know if we can help you.
Yep.
Nope, I think we're all good. We're actually live. So thank you, Paul, for that. And we are good to go.
Good. Thank you, Christina. Thank you, Paul.
I would probably start from doing, I guess, the introductions just to make sure that that was heard, and then kind of go back into where you left off, actually.
So you're saying we went down, so the start over the whole down payment assistance, we were not live for that?
That is what it's looking like.
Okay.
So Barry, I think I would just recommend introducing all the members of AHAC, and then we can do a brief DPA. Go to Mike.
Okay.
Actually, no,
Okay.
we're good. You can just pick back up where you started. I rewatched everything.
Okay, pick back up where we started. Okay. Okay.
Thanks, Christina.
All right.
Thank you.
Take two. Take two. Okay. So we're going to pick back up. We had a little brief techno lap there. So we started our discussion about down payment assistance, and I gave a little introduction. Paul gave a little bit of a background on it and about the staff report. And now we're going to have Mike Vance start his discussion about Mountain Housing's proposal. Thanks, Mike.
Hi, good morning. I'm Mike Vance with Mountain Housing Opportunities. I appreciate the opportunity to speak to you all today as you consider this proposal that we put in front of you. I wanted to kind of go back. I also asked, and I'm not sure if everyone received the document that we shared, hoping that you had a little time to read up on what exactly is a shared appreciation mortgage, how it works. We'll go a little bit into that in a moment, and why and what its purpose is mostly used for around the United States. So I borrowed a lot of that language from a lot of information that's out there online. I tried to put some credits. I looked back at the PDF, and I'm not really sure that those links worked. I'm sorry about that. In my Word document, I can right-click on them, but there is quite a bit of information out there, and it's nice to see who else is doing similar models around the country. So we have been using a shared appreciation mortgage at Mountain Housing Opportunities for over 20 years. It originally started, we would use those on homes that we would build or rehab and sell when that was our main home ownership product. Early on, most down payment assistance funds were granted. The amounts were a lot smaller. The funds needed between incomes and purchase price were a lot smaller at that time. As the amounts began to increase in size, policy changes for us and for other groups doing similar work moved to, hey, maybe we shouldn't really grant these funds. Maybe we should loan them. Those initial loans had forgiveness structures on them. Maybe if a homeowner stayed in a home for 5 or 10 years, those loans would be forgiven. We've seen as those down payment assistance amounts have increased even greater that forgiveness has gone by the wayside as these loan amounts have become more significant than they were 10 or 15 years ago. And what we've also seen and what we adopted early on was in areas where there is a high rate of natural appreciation occurring in the real estate market, taking on this shared appreciation method, trying to keep dollars that are invested in a home equal with the market rate of appreciation. Because what we know and what these loans are doing is they're helping one family into a house, but when that family no longer needs that house, those funds can go on to someone else, and that happens later in time. And we are trying to keep pace with a highly appreciating market here in Asheville. So we were putting these loans in houses that we were building and selling for years. And then back in about 2007, there was an organization in town, Neighborhood Housing Services, and they were going out of business and asked if we could, Mountain Housing Opportunities, could administer a pool of second mortgages that they had originated with city CDBG funds, city home funds, on houses that were not built by NHS, but were just homes that were purchased in the community. And they had started this down payment assistance program with funds from local funds, from home and CDBG, and then also some national funds from a national network called NeighborWorks America. We took those funds over in 2007 and 2008. It was about 122 loans. The value of those loans was probably around $2 million. And we started working with the city immediately to continue to apply for CDBG and home funds for new monies to lend in this same method, this shared appreciation method, and we've been running that program ever since. I think it's been, I've talked to some folks who kind of aren't really aware that we've been doing this or have forgotten that we're doing this, because in about 2013 was the last time that we came to the city for CDBG funds or the Home Consortium for home funds. We were starting to, this loan fund that we were building for the community was amassing at a size and starting to do what we had hoped it would do and revolve on its own, so that the loans that we're currently lending are from loans that have been paid off from past homeowners. So since 2009, when we started this program, we have assisted an additional 320 buyers using this loan product. It's available. It originally started as just a Buncombe County loan product. We've increased the geographic size of that depending on funding source. We track several different funding sources, but we are lending in the Asheville MSA, Haywood, Henderson, Madison, and Buncombe County at this point. The majority of our loans are in Buncombe County. About 20% of the loans that we have done in that period of time has occurred in the city limits of Asheville. So one of the other things that we were able to do when we took over this loan fund and became this essentially this kind of community lender was to apply for and receive certification through a program that is administered at the national level. The U.S. Treasury certifies and administers the CDFI fund, which is a group of community development financial institutions. We have three in town. Mountain BizWorks is a community development financial institution focusing on small business lending. Self-Help Credit Union is a larger CDFI, and Mountain Housing Opportunities has been a CDFI since 2009. Acting as a second mortgage lender of these shared appreciation mortgages. Through that partnership and certification, we've been able to leverage external funds through the CDFI fund. To date, we've brought about $1.3 million into that revolving fund. Through that national network that I mentioned, that Neighborhood Housing Service had been a member of, and that we are now a member of, NeighborWorks America. We have also leveraged an additional about $800,000 of funding that is all moving into this fund that we are administering. And right now, the size of that fund is about $4.8 million. It's a current portfolio of about 288 loans that we are managing and administering. One of the other partners that we have is Buncombe County. We have a separate pot of funds. It's within that 4.8 million, 288 loans, but about $820,000 of that, and 53 loans at this point, is a fund that we administer for Buncombe County, exactly in the same method that we are proposing to administer these funds for the city. We track the loans are repaid, we relend the funds back out. We can see who has been helped, how the funds helped those while they were in the home, how much money has come back to the fund and is relent back out. So we think that what we're doing is creating this permanent resource for the community, and I believe that we've done this, and we're going to continue to do this. And when the city decided that it was going to allocate some bond funds a year, when that happened a couple years ago, we got very excited about that. This is wonderful. We helped out with information that we knew as the city was preparing that policy. on how we might be able to help with those with that policy direction, we did at that point argue that this shared appreciation model, especially in the city of Asheville with these high appreciation rates, was the best model to use. And what was eventually adopted was kind of a hybrid. It is currently a shared appreciation mortgage for years 1 through 20, and then in years 20 through 30, that loan begins to is forgiven, to where right now the city's policy is that that loan is completely forgiven at the end of 30 years. And that's not how the model that we have used for years works. There is no forgiveness period. It is an investment in the home. It creates that opportunity for home ownership. It creates that opportunity for wealth building because of the high appreciation rates that Asheville sees, because a homeowner is paying down a 30-year mortgage that they eventually are building equity. But the wealth isn't generated from the down payment assistance loan. The down payment assistance loan is the tool that makes all this happen. You could give the tool away at the end of a period, but it's better to actually keep that tool to help someone else down the road. And that's how we've operated this program, and feel that it ought to happen. So I wanted to so the other so when the city asked for proposals, we kind of, I'm a little embarrassed that we're that job applicant that comes in and says we want the job, but not the way that you kind of posted it. But I really I feel that if we are to administer this, and I know that's a big question, we would like to roll these funds into the exact same system that we're offering. Now, we can segregate this money. I'm not saying that we're not going to lose these funds. They will be. We have the ability to track funds, and are doing this. We're tracking home funds separately, then we're tracking CDBG funds. We're tracking Buncombe County funds separately. We know whose money is whose. But we would like to roll this money into our existing loan fund to be able to offer this permanently in the future. And of course, these funds would only be for the city. The repayment of funds would go back into city homes only. But we are, the other thing that, and reason that we're asking that we think we might be one of the best folks to administer this is, we are always looking for match money to go and apply for more funds through the CDFI fund. And this is exactly the type of match that they are looking for, and that we could use to leverage additional funds. So our hope is to not only administer this $1 million for the city indefinitely, but to add to it through matched money offered by the U.S. Treasury through that CDFI fund. So I think that's a little bit about what we can offer. I'd like to, Paul, if it's okay right now, I'd like to go ahead and take a look at those 2 slides. The first one is a slide that was part of the packet or the part of the document that I shared, and I've just put it on a single page and made it a little bigger. I don't know if those watching, if that document was shared with the public, but this gets to the nuts and bolts of what a shared appreciation mortgage is and what it does. So the concept of these is that a home buyer still needs to qualify for a first mortgage. That is not that part of home ownership with a shared appreciation mortgage remains the same. So based on your income and your credit and other debts, buyers qualify for first mortgage products. The problem that we see in Asheville is low-income home buyers cannot qualify for enough of a first mortgage product to buy a house in Asheville. So in this scenario, it's a $250,000 home where a family or an individual can only qualify for a $200,000 first mortgage. The gap is that $50,000. And just to keep numbers simple, we've gone with these very round numbers. So in this scenario, the down payment assistance loan is $50,000. Okay. Homeowners in the house, they're making their mortgage payment on that $200,000. There is no monthly payment on that down payment assistance loan. They're called deferred loans. So it does not add to or increase the monthly housing payment of a buyer. I think the selling of the home is the next scenario, and this is, I think, where all of this kind of hits the road. It's homeowners don't stay in their homes forever. They do sell their homes. If folks did, we wouldn't really be having this conversation. If folks stayed in their homes forever, there wouldn't really be the need for mechanisms like a community land trust. The what to do when the homeowner sells the home question is all because homeowners do sell their houses. When do they sell their house? It's a little difficult to tell. I know homeownership tenure numbers are different around the country. I tried to do a little bit of research on that. I did find that those numbers are going up a little bit. I think nationally that number has increased to 8 years on average, up from about 7 years, about 10 years ago. We don't know what that is here in Asheville. One thing that we do know, however, is that lower income families and households do tend to stay in their homes longer because of just inability for that mobility. But they do still sell their homes, and we see that. Folks sell their homes to be closer to family, to relocate for jobs. They sell a home because it may no longer suit their needs as they age or as their household increases. But we have seen, I went back and looked over some years of data, and some of this data gets a little fuzzy past 12 years, but I did learn in looking at it that at about 10 years, 50% of our borrowers had paid off their second mortgage with us. So 10 years down the road, about half of our borrowers have already repaid that money. I don't know what that number is at 20 years or 30 years, but it's going to be probably less than half. The way the current city loan program is written, buyers that stay in their home 20 years are going to repay these funds. So that's already in the formula and part of the city's current policy. I believe that the change, this proposal that we're suggesting of not forgiving the loans is really only going to affect a handful of the original borrowers of the funds. And as was mentioned, this $1 million is probably is going to help less than a couple dozen folks, and if it and those folks that may remain in their homes beyond 20 and 30 years is going to be even a smaller percentage of that. So the proposal that we're suggesting really is the impact on that is going to be a small handful of folks. What you're gaining is the larger community benefit of this larger revolving fund that can also be leveraged and added to. And and returning the funds, as you'll see in this in these scenarios, does not inhibit homeowners from creating wealth. I think that we pride ourselves at Mountain Housing on the fact that this loan product and home ownership with this loan product does generate wealth, and in some cases some substantial wealth. So looking at the second bar, this is just a scenario assuming that the home sells 7 years later, and it assumes a 6% annual rate of appreciation. I left that at 6. We have seen over the last 7 years in Asheville on our portfolio that that annual rate of appreciation is 5.7%. So that's we're right in the ballpark there. So home sells 7 years later. It increased up to a price of $375,000 in this scenario. The homeowner is responsible for paying off its first mortgage, which was that conventional mortgage. I think that was set up as a 30-year, 3.5% rate loan. They've been making their monthly principal and interest payments. They've paid down that first mortgage to $172,000 from its initial $200,000. In addition, they are going to return the down payment assistance loan payoff of $50,000 and the shared appreciation of another $25,000. So that is 20% of the $125,000 that the home is appreciated. The initial scenario was that the loan was 20% of the purchase price. When the loan is paid off, it is 20% of the sale price. So it is just recovering its small portion of the home value. The larger portion, the 75% of the appreciation, is the homeowners to keep. The principal payments that they have paid down on their mortgage is the homeowners to keep. And in this scenario, over a 7-year period, the wealth generated from that home ownership purchase was, $127,000. And that is, with returning the loan funds. Paul, I'll wait and answer all the questions at the end, but would like to go ahead and move to that next slide if possible, and then I'll wrap things up and ask for questions. So that first slide was a kind of a generic example, and it was one that I pulled from one of the websites. This is a chart of actual data that we of actual buyers and sellers here in mostly in Buncombe County. I didn't track these by exact location, but last year we saw 25 of these shared appreciation loans paid off, returned into the fund that we are lending out again right now. The homes that were purchased, and these are shockingly low because some of them were some time ago. So I wanted to show the minimum, the maximum, and the average of what I saw in the data. And so of the homes purchased, the minimum was $103,000 and the maximum was $221,000. The average was about $147,000 of the homes that were purchased with these 25 loans. The shared appreciation mortgages that we lent in these 25 homes ranged from about $3,000 to $30,000. The average was about $15,000. We see this average increasing because as time goes by, we have increased these loan amounts. The next column is the down payment assistance purchase of the purchase price. So how much how much of the down payment assistance loan was of the total purchase price, ranging from just a little bit more than 1% to about that 20% mark, which you'll see is probably more than likely where we're going to end up lending the city funds. But the average in these was 10%. And the number of years that folks kept those homes ranged from a year and a half. Had a homeowner, and this isn't always, it doesn't always happen, but folks do get into a home and decide a year and a half later, maybe that was a bad idea. Maybe I do need to move. It does happen. That ranged from 1.5 years to the longest of these was 16 years, but the average being 7, a little more than 7. And this is that annual rate of appreciation on the homes that low point being 2.7% was the lowest annual rate of appreciation, and 10.39 being the highest in that range, the average being 6.58. So the actual dollar amount of that home appreciation, how much the home increased in value from when they bought it to when they paid off the loan, lowest $25,000, the largest $146,000, average being about $77,000. And the last column is how much of that appreciation the homeowner retained, kind of showing that we're not trying, we are trying to help folks generate wealth. We are only pulling back that original tool, that investment, and a small portion of the appreciation. In addition to that last column, of course, that's just the appreciation that was occurred by the natural real estate market. The homeowner is also retaining, of course, all of the principal payments that they've made on their first mortgage, in addition to the numbers on that far right corner. So I hope that is, I hope that's helpful a little bit. I'm willing to answer some questions. I think that there's 2 questions ahead of this committee, and they're in this order. It's, is there consensus to in an interest to make changes to the policy that would remove this forgiveness structure, and I hope that you all do that. I think the second question is whether MHO is the right person, right organization to administer the funds, and I believe that we are, but I think that that's a separate conversation. I would hope that whether MHO administers these funds or not, that the ability for these funds to revolve at the same time of generating wealth for homeowners now and in the future is really the best way to go. So I'll leave it at that and answer any questions.
Cool. Well, thank you, Mike. I had a few, we'd asked some questions, asked some of the members just to put some questions in ahead of time. I just want to clarify a few that came in. Does the program work for any kind of housing, whether it's meaning a condo or a townhouse or a standalone house?
Yes, okay. It does. Yeah, we can lend on any type of real estate. We are we like townhomes and condos as much as single family homes.
Okay. And then just explain, if you could, there's a timeline for the ability to apply for matching funds. That's kind of where some of the timeliness of this comes in. Can you just explain how that matching program works and basically what the extra lending power that the $1 million from the city, what that could be matched with?
Sure. So there is an annual application round through the CDFI fund, and there is a match requirement, and it's a non-federal match. It needs to be a local matched dollars, which are a little bit harder to get. I cannot match home dollars with the CDFI fund. I can't match money that we receive from our national affiliate NeighborWorks as CDFI dollars. They need to be non-federal matched monies. And so if MHO were to administer these funds, we would be able to apply, we would be able to essentially go to the CDFI fund and apply for $1 million. I don't know that I would get $1 million, but I have very high hopes and confidence that I would be able to get around $750,000 from that $1 million. We have only applied, we've applied 3 times when we've had matching money and have received grant applications all 3 times. So can't make any commitments on that's going to happen, but I do know that this story of the city, creating its own local down payment assistance fund and looking to match that with Treasury dollars is one that they would respond to favorably.
Okay. And then what have you seen? So what you said is when kind of some of the trend away from down payment grants and moving more towards loans such as this, excuse me. The ones that are still forgivable, what do you said those loan amounts are less or generally have been less. What do you see those amounts like?
I believe that the Federal Home Loan Bank is the largest current lender of a down payment assistance loan that is a forgivable loan product, and that started years ago. It was a $5,000 loan, and I think it jumped to $7,500, but I think it might be a $15,000 down payment assistance forgivable grant at this point. The other large player that we leverage a lot of funds through and is a great resource statewide is the North Carolina Housing Finance Agency. They provide down payment assistance funding. Their loans are not forgiven. They can reach, they're up to $30,000, but those loans are never forgiven. So I see there's assistance that can help with closing costs. Let's help a buyer with closing costs. Those small amounts are easier to grant and give away than these larger funds that are needed to essentially reduce the purchase price for the home buyer.
Okay. Babs, you have your hand up.
Yeah. I just wanted to clarify, you were talking about matching funds. How would that match be allocated? Is the intention to allocate that toward the city's program or to the general MHO lending fund?
Good question. No, that would go directly into this city fund and be segregated with it. So we would, whatever funds that we would receive as match from the $1 million of the city, we would put into that restricted fund for the city.
And if that was, and you're saying that could not be matched if it was a forgivable, is that correct?
Right. So that's the other, yes, this, that was one of the, well, not the only reason, but that is, one reason to convert these to, non-forgivable loans. Those funds would need to be, an asset, a permanent asset. So the forgiveness is in conflict with that.
Yeah. And okay. And you said, what is the deadline for the application again?
That deadline, and I don't want to put any pressure on anybody on this decision. That deadline this year is May 3rd. That would mean that but that is an annual application round. We can apply for that. We can use match money. I believe they'll allow you to go back a couple years on your match funds. So the ability to match this would not disappear this May if the agreement couldn't happen by then. It would get a little tight for us to actually be in limbo and then quickly put an application together even by May. But the application deadline is May.
Okay. I see a couple hands up. I think is Paul Heathman. I think I saw his hand up earlier.
Yes, I do. Thank you. I'm a lender, so I've actually gone through this process with MHA with my customers before, and I can just say that this program works great. But I haven't seen as many of them as Mike has, obviously. So my question is, Mike, in your seeing this over the years, and then also if you could look to the future and imagine every scenario possible, could this ever be a burden, the repayment? Could this program, the recipient, ever be burdened by this? Is there any situation you can imagine?
Sure. So, yeah, thanks, Paul. A couple things, and I think what we're going to find is that there is no perfect program. This is there's always going to be a little give and take. Because the second mortgage, that shared equity loan, is a second mortgage on the home, it can interfere with a borrower's ability to take cash out of their home, to go and get to pull funds from their home without paying that loan off. Initially when these were kind of generated, and we were following some models, the same model that the North Carolina Housing Finance Agency has, the loan product or the terms of the loan would not allow would not subordinate to a new first mortgage where the borrower was taking cash out, to where that position in line was being lessened by a larger first mortgage. And we saw a lot of folks struggle with that. Why can't I go take cash out to make improvements on my home? Why can't I go take cash out for things? Some questions were, I'd like to take cash out of my house to pay off credit card debt. And while that may help right now, it's not a great idea to put additional debt against your primary residence. Credit cards cannot cause foreclosure on your home, but once you've rolled up additional debt to your house, there is jeopardy there. So these loans have limited the ability for homeowners to pull cash out of their home. We heard that comment and question and concern as we've been talking with the community, and would be have talked about ways that maybe a structure could be put in place that would allow a little mix of both. Maybe where, as long as the combined loan to value of a new loan with the down payment assistance second mortgage didn't reach more than like 85% of that home's value, a borrower could take cash out, and that this second mortgage would subordinate to some debt like that. I believe that is a decision that the city could make on its loan funds. They could make that number higher if they wanted to, or lower. But I think there are ways to eliminate that concern, which has been the primary hang up on having that lien on the property. If that second lien is completely willing to and favorable to any other debt ahead of it, then and that would be a decision that the city could make on its policy, then that barrier would disappear for the homeowner. That loan would essentially sit there, and that's how these are set. That was the initial intent, that the loan would just sit there, that it doesn't create a burden. There is no monthly payment for the homeowner. They almost don't even really know that it's there. It just is only repaid upon sale, and it's paid not out of the borrower's pocket, but it's paid from the home. So the cash will always be there to pay that back. The homeowner will always walk away, if the homes do appreciate. I think I spelled out a scenario where what happens if homes don't appreciate. But in the scenario where homes are appreciating, as we assume that they will, the loan will get paid off, and the homeowner will keep all of the principal payments that they made on their mortgage, and in that larger share of appreciation, without any impact to the home buyer. So I think there are some ways that the policy can be fine-tuned. This wasn't even addressed in the current policy, Paul. Those kind of questions are deep in the details of what happens when I want to refinance. Or we also we heard a question and suggested a possible change to the way that MHO does things now, and we may do this as long as the funding sources allow, that if a homeowner is selling a home but is still buying one in the same community, so let's say if they're buying another home in Asheville, they can just roll that loan right into that next home. And I think that's fine, and that's fair, and that's the way it should work. It's, the funds are there to help. Really, they're there to kind of mitigate the high prices that Asheville has. If someone's selling a high-priced home and leaving Asheville, going to another area where it's like, leave those funds here in Asheville for us to help future Asheville. But anyway, I might have gone a little further than answering your question, Paul.
Thank you. That's very helpful. Could you speak just very briefly to when homes don't appreciate, right?
Yes. So the loan does not work both ways. It is a shared appreciating loan. It is not a shared depreciating loan, unfortunately. And the reason for that is, again, it gets to a little bit of the finances of it. We need these loans to have an initial kind of a book value, and so the book value is that principal value of the loan that was lent out. Any language that talked about this loan could depreciate over time kind of wipes out any permanent value of that loan. So there, in scenarios where houses, and it's been rare, but it's happened. It happened a couple times back at the crash, where houses were selling for less than what they were purchased for. These loans do not fall below their face value. But on the other side of that is, upon sale, only the funds that the home can pay for will satisfy the loan. We do not go after. There's no personal loan after the home is sold that a borrower would have to pay. Again, the intent is the money helped someone into the home. It sits in the home. The home will repay the loan. The borrower is not really repaying the loan.
Thank you. That's it for me. That's great. Great. Thanks for giving the solution along with the problem.
Thanks.
Duana, you've got your hand up.
Mm-hmm.
I just want to make sure I'm clearly understanding. So you just talked about if the house doesn't appreciate. So if it doesn't appreciate, there is no repayment, like there's no appreciation cost to the borrower.
Correct.
Okay.
If in the scenario, if you bought the house for $250 and we're selling the house for $250, There was no appreciation. The repayment would only be that $50,000 loan.
Okay, and then as far as the opportunity for the match savings, I'm just trying to make sure that I understood you correctly. You could not apply for the match to the down payment assistance if it was a forgiveness criteria in the policy.
Correct.
Okay.
Okay. Do you have any more questions for him right now? I think there's a few more hands up I saw I was going to get to, unless you.
No, you can get to the other hands, and then I submitted questions as well.
Okay, cool. Paul D'Angelo, I saw you've had your hand up for a while.
Thanks, Barry. I appreciate it. Just quickly, a few clarifying things. I do have a draft down payment assistance policy update, and I'm making some of these notes with some of these points about refi, etc. And so just so you know that, and it's kind of good because we're supposed to be analyzing these policies once a year. So we're making some notes when we get to a full update, depending on what happens today, regardless. My question, for clarity, Mike, is right now the down payment assistance can sit out there as, I assume, what would be called a soft second loan, no interest, just paid back, at the trigger of a sale. I know there's more to that. And so, that appreciation example of where they borrowed 50, they paid back 75. I think you alluded to the fact that some of your folks actually make payments towards that soft second, that they try to pay off that down payment assistance loan, even though they don't have to until it sells. Is that correct? That some people do that?
We have had some folks that would like to do that, and it makes sense. You have this loan that you may get into a situation where it's like, I have some extra money. I'd like to pay off this loan. It can be done. It's a little difficult to do. These loans were made to be paid off in full. They were not made to be monthly payment loans, essentially because that's what they were trying not to do, was increase any monthly payments. And the other complication in making kind of a regular payment on this is the amount that's owed is kind of a point in time amount owed based on the current value of the home. So if you start stringing that out, you almost have to take new snapshot pictures of what's the home worth now. So we've done a couple different things. The best scenario for folks to essentially pay these loans off before they sell their home is just to refinance and roll the loan into another first mortgage. And we see that all the time. A lot of our, when I don't know the breakdown of those loans that I showed that were paid off last year, but those were not all home sales. Some of those were just folks deciding to refinance, get a better first mortgage, and roll that loan up into theirs. We have, and the city could adopt something like this, but it gets a little bit more, it increases the servicing time of this. The city could convert those loans to an amortizing loan, but you have to pick a point in time, say this is what the loan is, this is how we're either going to pay it off in full or we're going to amortize it out.
Yeah, I just heard you talk a little bit about that some people make payments. So I absolutely don't want to overcomplicate it with this already complicated stuff. But I was thinking like, oh, wow. So like if a payoff like that affected the appreciation value, the example you presented, 50,000 appreciation, they pay back 70,000. If for some reason somebody came to a windfall and they're like, hey, I'm going to put 10 grand down on that 50,000. So now when I pay it back, I only owe 40,000. I assume they would still owe that 25,000 in appreciation at the end of the day. But I don't want to further mathematically compliment some people were doing that. I just didn't know if that was something we would address in the policy, regardless of how we move forward. So I'll leave it there just to not further make it mathematically challenging.
All right. Thanks, Paul.
Sure.
Okay. I think I've seen a few. I think Brian Methvin, I don't see him on my screen, but I think I saw his hand pop up a while back. Brian, did you have a question?
On the appreciation when you're selling, so after 7 years of a loan, someone's going to, at 200,000, would have paid off about $30,000 in principal that they would have contributed themselves. If the house sells for less than 250, they're not going to recoup. They're going to lose all the equity that they put in the house. Is that correct?
No, they keep all of that.
They keep all of their equity. They get returned. Okay.
Yeah, this is not a shared equity loan at all. There is a slight difference between shared equity and shared appreciation. We are not taking or sharing any equity, just the appreciation. And if there is no appreciation, the borrower, borrowed the money at 0%.
And so in your example, after 7 years, that person, net of what they put into the house, would have had about $96,000 worth of wealth creation from that loan, because they would have had $127,000 of appreciation, but 30 grand of that they put into it themselves.
Yes, that's exactly right.
Okay. So even in that shorter period of time, someone would have generated, and that's why I guess you're seeing these refinances, because people say, I can then go ahead and get a new loan, and then now I get all the future appreciation.
Yes.
Okay.
Exactly.
Thank you.
Okay, I think we have Scott. I think I saw your hand up. I think I saw, so let me know if I'm missing anything. I saw Scott, Babs, Margie, Paul D'Angelo, and Dewana, your hands are still up. You have more questions? You want to take your...
I have more questions.
And quickly, Barry, just a time check of about 45 minutes, please.
Okay. All right. Let's hit. I think it was Scott was. I think let's go with Scott. I think I saw his was a.
I'm not skipping anybody in the raised hand order, am I?
I don't think so. I don't see a priority order, but I've been kind of watching this pop up, and I think
Okay.
I saw Brian. I think you, and then we'll go to Babs, Margie, and then Dewana.
Gotcha. Mike, thank you for the presentation and the walkthrough. I just was taking a couple of notes and was just going to ask a couple of comments and questions. First, yeah, that's helpful to differentiate between shared equity and shared appreciation. I'm basically seeing that as a positive form of value capture. The increment goes back into the fund. As you noted, that's the goal is to keep it revolving and sustainable. A quick question. Is this only for existing homes, or is this eligible to be used for new construction and more housing supply?
Oh, both. We it is not a it needs to, the home needs to be turnkey completed. It can't be a help with construction financing, but definitely new homes, existing homes.
Okay. And then I guess kind of just a quick comment. I mean, we're talking a lot about wealth building. I guess, just from my approach to it, because I am building, I'm building my own house to try and beat the housing market or create some stability for myself. But I guess it's maybe just a quick aside on a larger policy discussion. I see the primary benefit of this program is creating more shelter, a secondary benefit being wealth building. So it's my quick commentary on, obviously this has a wealth building component, but I think it's kind of going back to the whole purpose of it, just to increase the access to and possible creation of more shelter. So just my quick comments on that. Thanks.
Okay, Babs.
Thanks again, Mike. My question is about what happens after 20 years. I know that the general understanding is that we don't see a lot of folks who stay that long in their homes, but I'd like to understand what the implications are for individuals who do make that decision. I believe I heard you say that with the current policy, borrowers that stay after 20 years would still be required to pay back the DPA loan, which is not how I read it. I saw that there's a reduction by 10% every year from 20 to 30. So I want to know what the implications are with your proposal for 2020 and up.
Sure. So our proposal is that there is no time limit on the loan, that it remains a loan on the home indefinitely, potentially indefinitely, that it is not, there is no forgiveness structure. It doesn't change at 20, 30. It doesn't change, essentially ever. One of the things that we heard and have suggested, again, as a potential for families that do purchase a home that may be passed on to other generations of that home, is that's fine as well too. There doesn't need to be the loan is, should be repaid only when the home is sold. There could be, allowances for homes that are, if it is a sale or transferred to children, that lien, remain on that house and not be called. Again, just the only time that the loan really is being repaid is when that homeowner, or maybe the family of that homeowner, is really not using that home anymore, and that the funds should go on to the next homeowner.
Okay, some of the models that are out there that you referred us to show or reference appraisals being made on the home after a certain point, and basically a requirement for repayment of shared appreciation. What you're saying is that as from 20 years until infinity, essentially, those loans would never be called. There would never be a requirement to pay. The only trigger would be sale or transfer to a non-family member.
Except for one other, which is a current policy now. The homes can't be, they need to be a primary residence. They cannot be an investment property. But that, in addition to that, what you said is exactly true. It's in that way, that kind of infinity, it's lining itself up with a community land trust. That land under the home is always owned by the community and not the homeowner. Anyway, but yes, that's correct.
Okay, Margie?
So Mike, thank you so much. This has been an amazing presentation. As you know, in Asheville, there are maybe 35 homes less than $275, or 20, who knows. The median price I just saw the other day in the paper is now $540,000. So what if, I'm looking at this $50,000 that's being used in the examples, and I looked at what was happening in Arlington, Virginia. So first-time home buyers up to $112,500 towards a down payment. What is the potential? How high? How much money would the fund be able to go to home buyers? Knowing that we have very few homes that are less than, you can find some, but very few, less than 335, 350 for a 3-bedroom, 2-bath house. And the condos are, we don't even have any in that price range. So what's the story there?
I think you're asking how high, what is the limit of this down payment assistance funds? Yes. Now or in the future?
Well, based on the fact that, let's say we pass this, I mean, let's say that somebody wants to buy a $335,000 home, which is, you know, more likely than 250. How much, I mean, that's, you know, how much of the down payment assistance, how high can that figure go today?
Well, I think it can go as high as the city
I think
wants.
the way it's written, the policy's written, and I think that's another discussion point we're going to have separately about whether those numbers should be adjusted. But I think right now I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, I think it's either 40,000 or 30,000 or 35,000, depending if it's 60% or 80% AMI.
Yeah, it's 35,000 right now for 80% and below, and 40,000 for 60% and below.
Okay.
We would argue that a household earning 60% or below of area median is going to need a lot more than $40,000 to buy a house in Asheville. I do think that, Marjorie, that, you know, this is a trajectory that's going to continue to increase, and it'll probably be less than 10 years when we will need $100,000, you know, per house here in Asheville to help a home, like they're seeing in Arlington, Virginia. And it again kind of reiterates that point that we need to kind of be looking a little bit to the future and making sure that we're able to do that.
Well, I think that's, I mean, and if you take the city and taking this out of it and we don't have those matching funds, I think it really restricts what the city will be able to do more than likely. But MHO, what you do now, taking apart this program, just you yourself, what with your own program that you have, how high do you go now?
Okay, so right now we increased our loan limits to $40,000 within the city limits and $30,000 in Buncombe County and other counties. So our loan limits right now are currently at 40. Are they high enough? We don't know. We don't think so. We'd love to go higher. It's this, how do we decide, you know, because we can, you know, we have a lot of money that's for use in the county. But we are seeing some loans close. We have 2 loans in process right now in the city. We're helping a woman purchase a very small 1-bedroom, 750 square foot home that sneaked under the, you know, that's $229,000. And she, you know, is going to be purchasing that. We're helping a gentleman purchase an Eastview condominium right now, who needs a lot less because the purchase price there is less. So it can happen at 40. The window of who it can help obviously increases by the amount that you can lend. So, you know, it's the struggle between, do we want to help, you know, less people with more or more people with less? And that's a really hard question. And I'd love some, you know, some help with that and how best to structure that.
How many of your loans do you layer with others?
I'm sorry, Barry, what?
Oh, how many of your down payment loans do you layer? Like in those kind of cases, do you layer with North Carolina Housing?
Usually with North Carolina Housing Finance Agency, new homes can be layered. We've recently started, this is, you know, not in the city, but we have recently started partnering with Habitat of Henderson County, to where we're, you know, applying some of these down payment assistance funds into their homes, essentially being able to dig even, you know, a little deeper into some lower AMIs with folks. So we don't have an issue with layering these funds with any other loan product or down payment assistance fund, forgiven or not forgiven.
Okay, great. Thanks. Dawana, you have your hand up.
Yes. So as we talk about the loan and it being indefinite on a home, I think about if it's no forgiveness and the intergenerational debt that's applied to the families. If someone dies, say the person who originated the loan passes away, and so the kids inherit the home. It's not a sale. It's not it's a transfer
Mhm.
of the home. That level, like, is there room within your policy that considers that as well? Because that's like, I'm thinking about the intergenerational debt that is applied to this loan. If the forgiveness is taken out, say the forgiveness is taken out, is there a way to put in policy or in this process that forgiveness of death, which is uncontrollable, you know what I mean? It's a natural part of life, but like, so that the kids are not inheriting the debt. It's not a transfer of debt with something such as extreme as that. And so I'm just trying to think of other ways, because for me, the thought of the unforgiveness of this loan, even the 30-year, 20 years, and then 10 years, 10% that is originally proposed in this when the city policy is a long-term extreme. It's like, that's kind of extreme. And when I look at other down payment assistance programs, I've seen 10-year, and then the forgiveness kicks in. I've seen different models of that forgiveness process. So we're considering it, taking it out. Is that a consideration as well, as far as trying to minimize the debt on future generations? Like, we talking about a model that applies intergenerational debt to families, especially if we're looking at the lower income ranges. So that's an already financially stressed, you know what I mean, market up community, and then to apply the debt of with unforgiveness and inheritance of debt. It's just like, it's uncomfortable. So I'm just trying to figure out, like, if that is possible. Is that something that's being considered? Is it part of the process already? And is it some way that we could look at minimizing that, but so it's not inherited debt with this process? Like, not to say, like, I look, like, me and you have talked, and I've seen this presentation, and I've seen, you know what I mean, everything that your program currently offers. And I understand the consideration, because I would love for this process to be able to be something that can be a reoccurring fund, to the point of matching funding to be able to reach more people with this product. But I'm just trying to figure out, how can we minimize the burden on the borrower when we're looking at them lower AMIs, which is already financially stressed part of our community, and especially now. Let's give COVID, let's give the job, like, we're talking about right now and looking forward. And I just, like, I guess that's what I'm trying to figure out, is like, is there room to consider some less stressful ways of minimizing that debt on community?
I hear that, and I don't like I do have I don't, even though I say it, I mean, this is a permanent loan, and but I do believe that there may be difference between this type of loan and a debt, because what we're shooting for is that you know, is a loan that never has to be repaid. Is it debt? You know, in the scenario where a family inherits a home from a parent, at some point there is that net, that asset value, that home is and especially in Asheville, that home is worth a considerable amount. And so there may be a you know, this loan on the property, but it doesn't have to be repaid. It only has to be repaid if they're selling the house and generating this wealth, you know, and obtaining the wealth from the sale. You know, the only other, it would be hard to do, and the only other thing that I can add to that is that permanent nature of the of that loan is similar to a land trust. The land trust permanently, you know, kind of holds the land under the house. You don't really own that. your ability to buy a land trust house is made by the fact that you're paying less for that house because you're not really buying the land. That land is never released. It's permanently there. So it's always going to be recovered by the community when the home sells. And that's essentially what this mechanism is trying to do. It's not trying to say it's time to pay this money back, but it's trying to kind of retain this original gift in asset later. But I do hear the concern on intergenerational debt. That concept, I don't feel that that's what this is creating, because of the fact that it isn't really there. It may never be due, or anyway. I may be struggling with that a little bit, but that I don't have a solution for making that kind of a change. The idea is just like in a land trust, that this is a permanent affordability tool, and if you want a permanent affordability tool, that mechanism needs to live on, just like it does in a land trust.
So I get the reference to the land trust. I'm actually a part of the Ashford Buncombe Community Land Trust, and it has been referenced several times in this conversation. But I also get the benefits of the land trust holding the land and the cost associated with it for the permanent affordability, and given the initiatives around it and how it was structured, and the benefit to the buyer or the borrower, the person who purchased the house. And so I completely get that. But what I'm asking is that with this, when I say intergenerational debt, and the reason why I'm saying it is because first, the initial proposal for that was requesting the RFP, and how it was originally presented to AHEC, was that this was a pilot program and forgiveness was a part of this pilot program, and it was to increase home ownership within Asheville area for lower income residents. And so as I think about that, and I think about my father, we bought a house and we got this loan and we got this down payment assistance, this soft second. And my father passed away unexpectedly. And I already have a home that I own, and I want to sell his home. Now I'm paying back that debt. So like the wealth generation of it is like, it's like a pro and con to me. It's like, because now I'm paying back down payment assistance, and I maybe because I know how this program was originally proposed, and being a part of that conversation for the last 2 years is what's making me uneasy, because that shift in the unforgiveness, and then it's like even in the depth of the original borrower who say they stayed in their house 30 years or 40 years. You know what I mean? And now the kids inherit that debt when selling the house. I feel like the appreciation of your program, the value that's taken out with the appreciation of your program, say the house didn't, or say it appreciated by $25,000. Like any appreciation, because I think about the interest that's gained off the money that's sitting in accounts. Is that going back into the program? Is that all interest and everything from the accounts that's holding the money and everything, like is that going back into the program, or is that going into the administration of the program through y'all's agency, which is a sound agency on the burdens of the debt applied to the borrower? And like the community is already stressed. And so I'm just like, I'm struggling with that notion. But I also think about the refinance, and if that's not already a part of your program for the second soft. So if somebody try to refinance for college education, I need to pay for my kids to go to college, and they can't take the money out because it's not already a part. It's a consideration, as you explained it, if I'm correct. It's something that's being considered. Like, how do we apply those tools that make it a real wealth generation tool, that to the person, not I get on y'all side, the revolving fund, but to the actual people, the borrowers, and how do we support that? Is that on through city policy, and we need to implement that through the city policies and how that's written out, or is that through what y'all perceive as the best approach?
Can I just ask, because I'll just, one thing, because we're less than 30 minutes, so we have to kind of work on wrapping up. But just to clarify, Mike, if the homeowner passes, it does not have to get paid off until it sells. So if it can, you said it can be inherited by the family. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So it's not triggering that it has to be sold on, it has to be paid off on death. It's again, only once the property sells.
Correct. That's correct.
Okay. All right.
And Barry, if I can, it's Paul here. If I can quickly jump in, at 30 minutes, but just letting everybody know, like there are certain things that we can still discuss and hash out over later times that don't need to be, in my opinion, necessarily decided, today or how we move forward, and we'll figure out what that looks like at the end there. But if this question of the transferring and then eventual, whatever, we could figure that out in a update to the policy or review of the policy, because that might take a lot more community discussion or something like that. Just to put that out there. I don't want to speak for Mike, but we can have additional conversations. This is one reason that the city's community development staff was worried about running this ourselves, because there were so many things that came up. We didn't know how to get a handle on it to put it in one policy, which is why we were looking for a partner who had experience. So just to put that out there. Thank you.
And I think, one of the, regardless of, what we do today, I think, what our committee is going to, really look at assisting on a continuing basis is for the down payment program. How do we help market it? How do, it's not just, so we're at, the proposal for Mountain Housing is to administer the program. It's not where's the city, and we are still partners in this. So we still have the, the obligation, and we can do whatever we can to market this and make sure that this program gets in the hands of the people who need it the most. And I think, that's where our, continuing committee efforts will be on really the outreach and the marketing. That's kind of what we discussed at setting up our task forces with our task forces that connect. The part will really be about how to make sure we get this in the hands of the people who need it the most. So we've got about 20 minutes left, and I've got a couple of hands up. So I'll want to get to you, but I'm going to ask if you could just kind of keep it brief so we can kind of get to see if we're ready to do a vote on this. I can't see everyone. I see Babs has a hand up. I think I saw Andy. Is anyone else? And I think
Antoinette has one up. Antoinette has her hand up.
Okay. How about Antoinette? Let's take Antoinette, and then we'll move through from there.
Okay, and thank you. And not looking for an answer at this process. I do, in piggybacking off of Tawana, when this comes to HCG, Paul, I would be interested in knowing what, if any, federal income tax implications would apply if when after the death of a parent, a home is transferred and that second debt were to be wiped away. I'm wondering if that will be considered a gift for tax purposes, thereby opening the children or whoever receives it to additional tax implications. I'd be interested in knowing that. Obviously, don't answer it today, but it's something I'd be interested in knowing. Tax implications, could we possibly be harming folks more than helping them? I don't know the answer to that, but I would like to know the answer to that.
Okay.
Copy that, Antoinette.
Babs. And then let's see. Let me just make sure I've got everyone. So it's Babs, Scott, and Andy. Is that everyone? Babs, go ahead.
My hand up is up again too.
Yeah, I can hold my question.
Okay. How about Babs?
Okay. All right, thank you. So to address Dewana's concern about intergenerational wealth or potential debt burden, I think of this, and I know that you're saying, Mike, that you don't see this as a debt, but what I see is the implication of a generation not being able to, not being at the same level as their quote unquote peers, others who would not have had to pay back the shared appreciation in this asset, and so have access to more opportunity because they don't have to pay this back. So you have a group or generation of individuals then who are still behind. So to the extent that we're looking at this as a way of providing housing and also providing wealth creation and generation, I think we need to take into account who's getting left behind when we think about it from an intergenerational perspective.
I'll comment. I didn't hear a question, but yeah, the only thing I can say to that, and it is the way this shared appreciation mortgage also can be looked at is a homeowner who can buy a house in Buncombe County, or have to buy a house way out in Haywood County to commute into Asheville, or wants to buy a smaller home in Asheville and can afford to buy that home without a down payment assistance loan. Both homeowners and a homeowner that needs the down payment assistance loan and has one, they're both going to see the same rate of appreciation if those homes were side by side. It's set to. I do feel that there is there is equality there, that it's not my home that has a down payment assistance loan on it is appreciating at the same rate as my neighbor's home. And I'm seeing all the appreciation of everything that I, put into the house, of all of the equity that I originally invested in the home. I'm seeing all that appreciation just as my neighbor did. What's different is that small amount that made all this possible for me to own the home is kind of the communities and kept. I don't know that I'm answering your question. I do hear the concern about not about one being equal from another, but I think that all ends up with the only way to really solve that again, or is a forgiveness structure. And the city may decide that this money really had a different intention. I'm not sure that it did. It was framed as a down payment assistance loan. I don't know, but all I can offer is kind of a little bit of how we have handled things and how we would handle it if we were to administer it. And if it's decided that that's not the case, that's fine. We'll go on, with our thing, and these funds could be reworked into anything that the city decides that they want to do with them.
It's definitely a tricky one, and I think really, the main thing that when we look at what is the purpose of what we're doing with this, and I look at it, and I think our committee's main purpose is to get people in housing. It's to get people in affordable housing, and I know that the equity building is a discussion point, but that's not to me, it's like that's not the primary goal of what we're trying to do. And I would really And I think that's the big debate here, but it's like, we're trying to create a program to get people into housing now, and there's a need now. And we have a program, and we're now taking, I think, Paul D'Angelo is there. So it's like every year we're going to look at these, assess our policies and see if we can adjust them and change them. But, there's such a need now that, I think the equity, how to deal with the equity conversation and intergenerational wealth building, it's important, but to me, it's a secondary thing. And I want to make sure we keep focus of putting people in affordable housing. Anyway, let me see what questions we got, because we've got 15 minutes. So I need to hit.
And Barry, I'm going to make a quick clarification because I know times, and I apologize everybody, but I do, I don't want to jump ahead to motion or anything like that. But looking at this from a staff perspective, and whether there will be a vote or not, in my suggestion, and I may lean on Sam for a hot minute there, is that with this discussion, we should bring a full policy back with all of these discussion points. If everyone agrees to, let's proceed with MHO. But we need to see what that looks like per policy. I'm just trying to guide us towards some kind of decision today. But I definitely think spelling this out in a policy is very important to give more time and bring that back April 1st, which is our next meeting. I'll let you continue. Sam may have something to add on that, but that's my suggestion to get us to a movement forward. Sam, quickly, anything, or you think that sounds logical?
I do. I don't have anything to add, but I think we need to come back with a proposal.
Come back with what? I missed you, Sam.
With a policy recommendation.
Yeah. Okay. So I think what we need, so with the set of time now, so I think, what we can do is start a motion, and then there obviously is time to discuss it during the portion. But I think we need to move through. Yeah.
Barry, I get it, and I'm in reading this comment from a public comment that was sent to us as well. I feel like this process, like we are yet again, like in last meeting, rushing this process to make a decision and move forward yet again without the policy, and without an agreement on a policy. That makes me uncomfortable. I want to see if we're going to agree to move forward with MHO, I want to see a policy. I want all the information. We're making a decision without all the information. And yes, we have went through the RFP process, and MHO was the one picked out of that RFP process, and everybody's hesitant about moving forward with having to do another RFP and staff. I get all the dynamics, but at the same time, I'm like, we making a motion to move ahead with MHO without all the policy and all of the stuff we've been talking about. There's still not full clarity around all of this stuff. There's still not full consensus around anything that besides what they have done in the past. In our conversations, when I think about the percentage of people of color who have had access to their lending services, and it says 17% per my conversation with Mike, I'm like, I still have major concerns. And yes, our major goal is to get people into housing, but it's also with the consideration that lower income people in our city, which we know are not making a living wage, which we know the dynamics on the economic side of things might not qualify for these products. So while we're moving ahead, we also expanding on the gaps and the opportunities that's already here for the upper income AMIs to have access to a project, to a down payment assistance that the lower income AMIs don't have access to, because we are not taking the due diligence to make sure that
I hear you, Duana, but I disagree a little bit. I think we basically have a proposal, and there's just we are debating. There is the question about the forgiveness or not. I think but we're also, we're a piece of it to move it, so it can move
It's
along and
more-
get discussed.
It's not just the forgiveness, it's several parts of the policy that we have been discussing and debating in this conversation. So to make a motion to approve something that we are still debating is just like that's just not a good move. I just disagree. And so I will leave it up to the rest of the committee, but I disagree with us moving on with a process that we cannot agree on and a policy to let's just haphazard when we don't have all the information. Let me see the policy recommendations and the changes that we've been discussing, and then we can move forward with this conversation. But to move forward before we actually receive that, it's just haphazard to me. And it's like we're making a mistake to go back and try to fix later. That don't make sense to me.
Can I ask a clarifying question? Because I'm confused because it looks like in the chat what Paul is saying is that we're not moving forward with recommending MHO's policy. What it sounds like what Paul is saying in the chat is that we're offering to update the policy and come back and see if we would move forward with MHO. Is that what's happening? Or because somebody did say,
I might need some. Yeah,
what we're voting
I think Paul
on
and Sam, I may need some guidance here. Is like what I'm. Yeah, it's like I'm not sure procedural wise. Like, do we definitely have a difference in the committee, but do we put it to a vote? Do we wait? I'm a little.
So my suggestion would be, and again, hearing and trying to balance all this, like we always have to do, is hearing Duana about like the importance of seeing it in writing. And I completely agree with that. And my suggestion would be is we do not have to approve, in my opinion, we need to see a full policy. So we do not, with these suggestions of what this would look like if we did go with MHO. And I think that's important to see in a policy. AHAC is specifically for policy. I think it's important to see what this policy would look like with some changes that I think everyone agrees upon, as well as what it would look like in the policy if we went ahead with the MHO. And then we can go through that policy. And then if that everyone is agreed to at the next meeting and votes on that, and that aligns with what MHO is hoping to do or mostly does, then I think that's when the vote would occur. But for me, AHAC is all about policy. Y'all need to see a draft policy. I think we could color things in green that everyone agrees upon, color things in yellow that are a question mark. Like, hey, this is where we talked about forgiveness, and then this is where MHO wants us to go. It needs to be seen. It gives everybody more time to think about this. And the community aspect, which was what city management wanted to make sure we're giving people. I think that's the best way to go. I think we need to see a policy, in my opinion.
Okay, and we would still have the opportunity if we decide this just is not a model that we as a committee are on board with. We would still have the opportunity to come up with next steps if that's okay.
Correct. Again, if we saw a policy and the one part about the forgiveness, just know what you can't, and then we would go not vote for it and go back to RFP. But I do think we should see it in writing. I hope everyone agrees with that. I don't want to stall the process, but this is really important conversation. City management wanted us to get feedback, and I think we would be doing justice by bringing it up on April 1st. I wish it was April 2nd, not April Fool's Day, but it's a good day. We'll bring it back.
Okay. So this I understand. So we're saying, we're not making a motion on anything. We are.
You would be making a motion to, I believe, ask staff to update the policy, update the down payment assistance policy, and bring it back in April with discussion items agreed upon and in discussion from today. Something like that. Christina?
Hey, Paul, this is Christina. I agree with that. I don't think that there's any issue with, moving forward to further discuss this. Yeah, I think that should work fine. Thank you.
So you'd guide us, Barry, to update the policy based on this discussion and bring back a draft on April 1st to be voted on by the committee.
Okay. All right. So that means, we're going to introduce a motion to ask staff to update the DPA policy based on our discussions at the meeting today and MHO's proposal, and have that for us to review at our April meeting.
I second that motion.
So we'll do an official roll call on this. So second was from Paul Heathman. Any discussion?
Yes.
Andy?
All right, I'm a little bit confused on the motion. So
me too.
I don't know exactly how the current policy that this committee's already voted to approve is going to be changed when it comes back to us in April. Is it, I mean, because the changes that we're discussing are between MHO's recommendations and the policy that was approved. So it feels like, is the change that staff is going to make to the policy to move it more in alignment with MHO?
I think so, but yes,
And so if I can clarify there, I think it's important that if you guys approve this without seeing the policy, without seeing these things in writing, I don't think that that's prudent, in my opinion. You all should be approving the actual policy. And I think it's important to be seen in writing that everyone can walk through that, whether it's simple changes that we've talked about, like we really need to talk about upping the limit of 40,000, where we can do that. And that would be probably agreed upon by everything. The big one is obviously repayment and an opportunity to tell that story in the policy for everyone to see in writing, because technically you all approve policies and you guys see the draft to approve. Right now, there's nothing to be seen. And I feel like that is a really important part of this process, to actually see a full draft policy that we move forward to HCD. And that is just my opinion. No one has to agree with me, but I feel it's important that that is in writing and we page through that one by one at the next meeting. And then we vote. And if it's good, we go to HCD. If it's bad, we go back to the drawing board.
Okay, that makes sense. Yeah, because essentially we've talked about the MHO. We've actually made a motion to move it already a couple of meetings ago, but we've actually never seen we've never seen their actual proposal. We're just talking about it. So basically,
that is correct.
What the motion does is it basically takes all these things that we've been hearing and talking about that are in the response and putting them into the policy. So it's updating. That way, we don't have. We're looking at updating the policy so it is in line with what the proposal is.
Absolutely. That's correct. You see it in writing, and that's what should be voted on. Plus, also, I think the 30 days gives everybody a chance to continue. I would recommend we dedicate most of the next meeting to this topic as well. And then I think April 1st is a time we can figure it out. Whatever you all decide, you're the board.
It is a draft policy, so that's what everybody has to understand. It's not it's just a draft.
Yeah. Okay, so we have an active motion. We're in discussion time. Andy, you have
just one other procedural thought and comparison. I'm thinking about the way this program has been launched with $1 million in bond fund and the community land trust. I mean, we didn't when the city allocated that award, we didn't look back at what their resale formula was going to be or any of those sorts of things. The decision was this group has been created and is qualified to make programmatic decisions for how this money will be expended. Is that a better way for us to think about doing this DPA program, to find an organization that's qualified to to administer funds for this purpose, and then not get so far down in the weeds? I mean, we could have probably had this same conversation around how the Community Land Trust decided to structure its resale formula, which is what we're talking about right now about with the DPA model. We didn't do that. We said, we trust this organization. We're going to let them run with developing the program and implementing it. So is that I mean, is that another way that we could get this done if we, that might cut through the knots that we're in right now?
Maybe. I mean, yeah. I mean, yeah. We're. It's hard. I mean, yeah. It's like I think the difference is like it's kind of Mike started saying. It's like he applied. It's like applying for a job but asking to change the job description. So basically, what we're now saying is we're just saying now let's change the job description, and that's what basically what's going to come to us. It's so that way we're listening to them. We're going to take what their concerns were, their thoughts. We're going to put that into the policy. So that way, what we're going to review next meeting is that draft policy that's more in line with what our partner has said that they can implement. So I think that's kind of what we're doing. It's so that we're basically just now asking to formalize that. So I think so. We have our motion. Is there any more discussion on that before we finish this?
Yes. I want to speak to Andy's comparison to the Community Land Trust. First of all, the DPA assistance, the down payment assistance program was a proposal project from the city, not from community. So that's a dynamic difference. The city was implementing the DPA assistance originally, but with limited capacity has shifted to the RFP process over the years so that somebody else could facilitate it. So that's what gets us down into the weeds. But if I'm buried in that, and you just said something that's got me like, okay. So Paul, correct me if I'm wrong, if this policy that will be coming to us for April 1st will also include the discussion items that we have been discussing today, as far as I think they said the city would have to implement the taking out of money, like if somebody needed to leverage the money, be able to take money out of their home. The city would have to have that as a part of their policy, as Mike referenced, as a part of our policy.
So I have about 8 bullet points of things that I think I need to take a look at with this policy. And and again, I think I will address those in a draft, as Margie said, and then I will find a way to color code things perhaps that seem to be agreed. There's a general agreement on, and then put in red, the ones that perhaps are the big discussion item, which ultimately it's going to be forgiveness versus payback, I'm sure. But it's, I think, again, repeating myself, and I apologize, but very prudent that we see it in writing. I don't have to dive off the deep end to all of this, but I think I can do it. I can get it in writing. I don't want to stall the process, but this is good community conversation. City management wanted us to have this type of conversation.
Okay, thank you. I just wanted to clarify I understood you correctly. Thank you.
Sure. Sorry, I'm repeating myself. Just trying to be clear.
Okay. So any more discussion before I do a roll call vote? Nope. Okay. I think I saw Paul Heaton, you made the second, right? So Margie?
I vote yes.
Andy?
Yes.
Joanna?
Yes.
Brian?
Yes.
Parker?
Yes.
Scott?
Yes.
Babs?
Yes.
Is that everybody? I think that's everybody. All right, thank you. So motion carries on that. Thank you. And so we'll have that to review for our next meeting. Do you think when I know you don't have anything else on your plate, Paul? So
just traveling away with Antoinette.
Yeah, just how just for discussion, and how much, when do you think like that would be prepared? How soon before our meeting would we, or do you think we'll see it right at?
I mean, ideally with something like this, I mean, you'll be reading the policy. I'll try to get it out the Friday before, but at the latest would be Monday at 5 p.m., whatever that Monday is, March 29th, I think. So by 5 p.m. to give you all, and again, if we, pause a few things on AHAC and have majority of the GPA conversation, I would recommend at the next meeting that we at least make a motion to approve the policy as is or not, and then that'll give us further direction, and then we can share this with the second floor city management folks, and I think that's a good plan, and I'll get it out as soon as I can.
Cool. All right. Well, thank you all. I mean, it's important to have these conversations, and we're not always going to agree on things, but I think we try to meet in the middle, and that's what any kind of partnership or balance is about. But yeah, it'd be nice to get all this discussion into kind of one document, and then we can review and for our next meeting. So thank you all. We did receive, we did receive one public comment that is in the posted that I think I'm supposed to. I think it's posted in the. I'm not sure if it's posted in the meeting minutes, but I think I'm supposed to read it. So let me pull that up, just so I can read that. Sorry, it's going to take me a sec to find it. Okay, so sorry about this. Okay, so we received one public comment from Tracy Thompson. It says, "Hello, I'm another Buncombe County resident that is concerned about mountain housing opportunities, lack of down payment forgiveness. This should be upfront, and those with low income should have input on this. This MHO proposal felt rushed through with an emergency AHAC meeting and then quickly sent to council. Regardless of whether MHO is offering a loan without interest, any contract attached to affordable housing should not request those experiencing poverty to repay the down payment." Thank you for that. Let me get back to the screen so I can see you all. So with that, thank you all. We're running about 5 minutes over, so thank you for your patience with that. And I adjourn this meeting. See y'all.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye, everybody.
Thank you.
Yep.